Warning. The following video contains strong language that some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
What is the most disrespectful shit someone has done to you? My first job as a photography intern. My boss posted on Facebook that he was going to fire me hours before he told me. We were friends on Facebook at the time. When I worked a kiosk, someone sneezed into their hand and wiped it on my back when they passed by. It was a first day of one of my college courses and we were telling everyone our names. I said mine and the professor said, my husband wanted to name our son that but I didn't want him to get made fun of. Edit, my name is Angus. Somewhat related. But when I started my last job I went in for orientation and to fill out my employment paperwork. And the head of HR told me that her daughter and I shared a name, well actually a nickname. Because though she and her husband loved my name as a nickname, they wanted their daughter to have a more professional-sounding legal name. She didn't even seem to realize that she'd said anything I might find offensive. I'm sure others have had it way worse. But when I was about 17, I was assembling a ride on train track, about 2 feet between rails, for an indoor amusement park when the owner of the company came in. He decided to help me. I don't know why. I didn't ask for help and didn't need help. He helped me put a couple track segments together and decided that was enough work for him, so he got up off the floor and wiped his greasy, dusty hands off on my jeans. With my leg in them. I was seriously incensed. Was working at a Dairy Queen when I was 16. It was a hot summer day and a lady came in and dumped her melted blizzard upside down on my hand. In the process it covered my register, the wall and the floor. She started yelling about how her ice cream melted and how I need to make her a new one. She was served in the drive-thru. I was working the front counter inside. My coworker said she left over 20 minutes ago. I still had to make her a new one and give her a refund. A kid at school when I was younger who put out his cigarette out on my face. Still got the burn scar. Edit, a lot of people been asking about the repercussions and suing him for damages. I was really young back then. Around 14, and the rules around bullying wasn't set to stone. They left it off as kids being kids even though I had serious burn marks on my face. We filed a complaint, went to the police and sued him. In the end the lawsuit returned us with something minor cause he was too young. So he did get some tasks he needed to fulfill by justice. It wasn't enough for me. Hope that clears the questions people had. My ex-husband and I were on the road to divorce. I had done absolutely everything I could possibly think of to turn us around. And as a last-ditch effort, I wrote him a letter. I knew it had a 0.1% chance of doing anything, so it was also kind of a thank you for the good years letter. 2. We were living with his parents because originally, we sold our house to make an upgrade. I guess that was his window of opportunity. Anyway, his mom found the letter and not only read it, but took pictures of it and shared it with multiple people, who started tearing me apart via text. How did I know this? She never hears her phone go off. So I would usually bring it to her. I went to do that and saw the mentions of a letter and saw the context of what was sent. I didn't say anything, just set the phone back down and went outside to get a breath of air. Later that week, she said she was tired of me being around and that he needed me to sign the papers then and there, and I didn't get a say in anything. I mentioned sharing the letter, and she said she was allowed to do that because it was in her house. Therefore, it was her property, still trying to wrap my head around that one. And then they sat there and watched TV while I packed my things. Edit, holy whoa, I definitely didn't expect that large of a response. Thank you all for the kind words. Encouragement. For reaching out. And the awards. I will do my best to reply to each of you. It feels nice, smiley face. Locked my new bike up outside a supermarket and ducked inside to get some yogurt because it was Friday night and that's how I de-stress after a long week. Self-checkout line was busier than expected, but I was in and out in about 10 to 15 minutes. Didn't want to leave it for too long because someone had pinched the seat from outside my house a couple of weeks earlier. From a short distance I could see my bike was facing the opposite way I'd left it and felt a little confused. I got closer and saw my U-lock looking like a pretzel. It seemed like someone had tried to wrench off my lock, failed, and then just picked up my bike and tried to use it as leverage to pop the thing off. Failed again, but succeeded in completely fucking the entire aluminium frame, total write-off. Could not be fixed. My ex didn't allow me to have any female friends and wouldn't even let me say my best friend's female name in front of her. We broke up because she fell in love with her best friend, male. I had someone I considered a close friend send an unprovoked email outing me to the entire staff of the place I worked. Not only that, he took a screenshot of an online dating profile as proof and told them to keep their kids away from me. I was a teaching professional at a country club. Closing parenthesis. Yesterday at my job, supermarket, I went outside with some guy to bring the handicap scooter back in. He immediately began to yell at me and curse at me about how he's handicapped and for not helping his wife unload their groceries. I tried explaining to him that because of the current situation, we can't touch people's groceries unless they specifically ask us. He wouldn't even let me talk. Kept interrupting and insulting me. So I just stayed quiet and he eventually threatened to call his grandson to come kick my ass. Then drove off with his wife, who was also insulting me under her breath. Being an essential worker sucks. Go to a meeting for work. Coworker says to opposing counsel, "Hey, do you want to meet Gutenberg Bible? He's here," and gestures back at me standing in the hall with a bunch of files. This motherfucker looks me up and down, turns back to my coworker, and says, "No," quote, "reminds me of a job I had at college at this pie firm. There was an attorney there, let's call him Frank, because his name was Frank. And when I first started, I tried to introduce myself. And Frank cut me off immediately and said, 'I don't want to know your name until you've been here at least 6 months.' And then just walked off." Former boss owed me some back pay for a legit reason. My wife went into hospital for a month because of a complicated pregnancy. Baby was C-section and then had to be NICU. The day of the C-section, boss said he wasn't going to pay me anything. Edit for all those asking, yes, of course I put in a complaint with the Ontario Ministry of Labour. Unfortunately, if an employer doesn't pay even after an order, it's put to collections. If the person is shitty enough like this dude was, they just dodge those collections too. I'm sure it'll catch up with him eventually. But at this point he's been run out of his home city. Teacher here, from a student. One student described how he would rape and kill me in graphic detail after he failed a test. From a coworker, a paraprofessional mocked me for high-fiving one of my autistic students after he gave a really great description of how he understood a math problem. That kid is a selective mute with a horrific past. And she told me I was a complete joke for congratulating him. Even worse, she said it in front of the kid. From my father, putting me down when I got to meet my childhood idol. I got to show my idol my first published research paper. And my father interrupted just to tell me, "Shut up. You're not going to win the Nobel Prize." Single quote. In 11th grade, a longtime friend told police broke into his house and stole some Gucci bracelets. At the time I didn't know what a Gucci was. Got a call to go down to the principal's office where an lieutenant from my local PD was there and started questioning me about the incident. Said they had witnesses, and knew I committed the crime between a 30-day period. Demanded that I tell him where I had the bracelets, asking if I pawned them. At 16. Ruined my high school. Kid was super popular. Soon the whole class looked at me as some kind of thief. Teachers included. Ended up dropping out of school. Because I had become public enemy number 1. Nothing ever came from it. Not the most, but definitely up there in the top 10. Kids on the bus held me back and yelled to the bus driver, "He isn't here," so I had missed my bus stop and had to walk home. They did it again the next day, but I fought back in time and, when I was leaving the bus, the door caught a strap on my backpack and began to drag me with it. The strap finally snapped and I went rolling forward. I just laid there for a bit on that hot afternoon. My abusive first girlfriend said to me, "I'm glad for your mama because she doesn't have to be around you anymore." Literally the same night I confided in her that my mom ran out on me and I hadn't seen or heard from my mom in years. When I was 18, I was dating an alcoholic. We arrived separately to a party. And when I got there he was wearing nothing but a bathrobe. Drunk as fuck. And insulting and trying to fight everyone. I tried really hard to get him to leave the party so I could drive him home. And he was not having it. Started berating me and then threw a lit cigarette down my shirt. The same guy also put an overripe banana down the back of my shorts and hit my ass as hard as he could in front of all his stupid friends. He fucking sucked. Thankfully, it's 10 years later I have self-respect now and don't date assholes anymore. For reference, back in the day I was almost 300 pounds. Had long hair that was always in a ponytail and I was very timid and quiet. Anyways, in 7th grade a guy told me his friend had a crush on me. His friend was within earshot and he, with full disgust, said, "Hell no I don't. Never her. I am pretty sure they did it as a joke between themselves." But then other guys started chiming in, who they were not friends with, and adding their own 2 cents about how I was hideous. My roommate in the military was in a different unit. I had to be up at 5 a.m. He had to be up at 8. It was 10:30 at night and I asked if he could stop talking on the phone while I'm trying to sleep or go outside and he responded with, "It's not my fault you have to get up early." And continued his conversation. I was new to my middle school. This middle school was in a small town where everyone knew each other and I was nervous since I knew absolutely no one. I walked into the cafeteria on the first day where we had to wait until the bell rang to go to class. I looked around and realized everywhere was full except for this one space at the bench-like tables. I headed towards it and asked the girl who was in the space next to it if I could sit there. She looked up at me, gave me a dirty look and asked, "Are you homeless?" I was dumbstruck. I didn't say anything, but she did shift a bit so I could sit down. I don't remember who she was. I don't remember her face. Or even her voice. But her words will always stick with me. Edit, she did not mean it in a joking way and was not trying to say something else. She meant exactly what she said and that's what stuck with me the most. No humor, no playfulness, no failure to communicate, just pointless cruelty. I was in 5th grade. 10 or 11 years old. I didn't do homework often. Because my teacher was mean. And I didn't want to do anything he asked me to do. But I decided to put in extra effort to finish all my overdue math homework so I could submit it the next day. I finished all the worksheets in one night. Stapled them all together. And wrote my name on the top one. I gave them to him. He looked them over, tore off the top one. Then ripped the rest of them in half and threw them away. He looked at me and said, "I don't know who those belong to. They didn't have your name on them." And then he kept me inside from recess and told me to redo them all. Fucking asshole. I'm still pissed at you. Mr. Prime. It was the night before my 21st birthday. My best friend in college who was older than me was excited to take me to a bar at midnight to ring in the momentous occasion. Then this girl who had been flirting with him for weeks called to tell him she was having a party. Thinking we could do both, he decided to drag me along before going to the bars. Now her place was outside the city, and therefore outside nightlife. But my friend, who honestly up until this point was reliable, assured me that we'd leave after an hour so I should call my other friends to meet us downtown. I'm sure you can all assume we didn't make it to the bar and some might have guessed, "Oh, it's because your friend hooked up with this chick." Well, slow down because this is where shit gets disrespectful. We go in, hang out, she's all over him and tells everyone to come go skinny dipping with her. We can both see the danger signs flashing and decide that now would be a good time to go. Unfortunately, she took offense to this and calls him a slut while smacking him across the face. She starts crying and tells us to get out before chucking a bottle of vodka at his car, shattering the passenger side window where I was sitting. This is while we're driving away. He stops, screams at her, and I got to spend my 21st birthday giving a statement to the cops and picking vodka-soaked glass out of my shoulder. 20 plus years ago when I was in 6th grade. An 8th grader spit on my bike. Then in my helmet. Then on me. I punched him in the face. One of my friends saw all this. Ran up and also punched him in the face. He ran home. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. See you next time.